All right, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to another episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. Let's get this thing live within the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters Facebook community. And we are good to go. All right, on this episode of the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast, what we're going to be talking about is how to replace your physical therapy salary so you can go all in on your cash practice without burning your life, your sanity to the ground, to make sure that you have enough cash flow coming in to really go all in on your practice and make your dream life, and where you're able to make the impact you want to make. You're able to work with who you want, how you want, and most importantly, like whenever you want, a reality. We're going to be mapping out the numbers, showing you exactly what you need to be charging, how many clients you need, and ultimately what revenue you should be going in before you consider leaving your job or leaving your cutting back your PRN hours so you can go all in on your practice. So we'll walk you through how to calculate your freedom number, what revenue milestones you need to hit before you quit your job, and the exact priorities for marketing and sales that move the needle the fastest. So in this episode, we'll break down how to know when your practice is financially ready for you to go all in, the minimum metrics you should be tracking in order to feel comfortable with taking that next step, the simple ramp up plan from side hustle to part-time to full-time in your practice, and the mindset shifts you'll have to make to transition from being an employee to a clinician to start thinking like a CEO. This is going to be a really, really valuable episode because we get this question all the time of people who have a side hustle. Maybe they're working out of their garage, their local gym, wherever they are, and they just don't know what to look at in order for them to make the decision where they're comfortable enough to actually go all in. So let's do it. What's up, Ben?
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be eye-opening for people just how simple it can be, especially when you get the right pricing structure dialed in as well. So I'm a big numbers guy, and I think this is going to be really helpful for people just to get clarity on the step and how a roadmap to essentially be able to how to replace their current income.
Right. So let's answer the first question: how to know when practice is financially ready for them to leave their job and go all in.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is you have to figure out what model you want to do. Do you want to do the burn the ship method where you just go all in on your practice, quit your job, go all in on your practice, or do you want to work part-time elsewhere, or maybe you start full-time elsewhere and then slowly go down to like 30 hours, 20 hours, and 10 hours as your caseload builds. I chose actually option B. Going back, if I could do it over again, I'd probably do option A. So option B is what I did, and that was I was working full-time elsewhere, and then on the weekends I was seeing patients, and then as I increased my income from my business, then I went down to 30 hours, and then when I increased it further, I went down to 20. So I never really took a hit financially per se in that way. However, it did slow down my growth a little bit. But if you are wanting some more security and do it with less risk, there was really no risk. I actually made more,
Yep.
made more that way because I was just working more, right?
Right.
So that's something to be said. But if I would have just quit my job, it probably would have happened even faster. However, I don't know. It was kind of nice to have that backup option, and
Mm.
I don't know, maybe I could make and play devil's advocate a little bit that, hey, maybe because I wasn't as nervous and scared about needing to replace my income, I didn't come off as desperate when I was trying to make connections. So maybe I
Right.
made connections more effectively and efficiently because I didn't come off as desperate. So there's devil's advocate you can play of like, what if this, what if that? Those are the two options when it comes to that. And really, there's only one person that can make the decision for you on what's best, and that's yourself. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is like one, you have to know what your risk tolerance is because there's always going to be a risk. But the thing about businesses is if you are consistent, you show up, you put in the work, and you are strategic with what it is you're working on, well then, as long as you're going all in on it, you're going to start to make money, period. So I think if you're deciding between having some PRN hours or continuing to work maybe full-time or part-time somewhere else and just seeing patients on the weekend in your side hustle, I think a good rule of thumb just right out of the gate, if you're in bucket A, you're going to keep your job, or bucket B, you're going to go all in on this thing. I would recommend having 6 months of expenses that cover everything, because if you're brand new to business, the first 3 months might be dicey unless you already have some great local relationships where you can get referrals, or you already have a roster of clients that you've worked with that you think are going to follow you wherever you end up going. But if you're going to go all in right out of the gate, make sure you got 6 months of expenses to kind of mitigate your risks a little bit, so you have time to learn and execute. Because in business, typically you want 3 months runway at any given time saved in the bank. So if you're brand new to business and you have 6 months of expenses all covered, then you can go all in. But make sure that if you are doing that, you already have a plan of how you're going to acquire patients. Okay, because you're going to need time to build up that that flow of new patients coming in. But if you have that 6 month rate, then I think it's pretty safe for you to go all in, assuming, of course, you're going to get up, put in that work, and you're ready to learn fast and fail fast.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's usually it's easier than what people think to a certain extent. I will be the bearer of bad news though, where I see a most common mistake is people thinking that, hey, if I'm making $100,000 now, I just need to replace my income. I just need to make $100,000 in my practice. No, you should actually, if you want to make $100,000 take home, you're going to need about $200,000 in income and revenue through your business, because after expenses, taxes, and all that, you just based on working with over 100 different cash practice owners, also the book Profit First, which I encourage everybody to read, especially if you're just starting out. Just the realities of business expenses is, if you do want to have a $100,000 salary, you will need to be generating $200,000 in your practice. I think that's where I see a lot of people go wrong, or maybe quit their job, or people that are maybe not entrepreneurs that think they're entrepreneurs or want to do their own business. They have like an oh shit moment where they quit their job and then they're like, get into it and like, oh crap, I get hit with their first tax bill, start realizing all the expenses that come with it. And at the end of the year, they actually have only made like 50,000 because their goal is 100,000. They did hit their goal, but they didn't really have the right goal to be aiming for in the first place. And so they kind of get screwed. So that's something to be well aware of when you go into this.
Right. Which does mean that you will, in order to get there, to fully replace your salary, you will have to go all in on your business in order to make that happen. You're just not going to make, what was that, $20,000 a month just treating patients on the weekends, unless you're charging a much higher ticket than the standard or average cash practice. So to figure out where you need to be and to get there way faster, we're going to pull up our pricing calculator and show you how to actually calculate how many hours you have, how many hours you want to work, what it is you need to be charging to even make it possible for you to gain the momentum you need to go all in on that practice. Because if you're charging $100, $150 or competitive rates, you're not going to get to that point where you're feeling comfortable enough to go all in on your practice, and you're just going to give up because you're going to look at the math and it's just not going to math. And so you're not going to go. And so let me share my screen real quick and let's walk through this. This is something that we do with every single one of our clients to help them determine their numbers. Now, if you get value out of this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. And if you would like access to this document, just comment calculator below, or no, actually, we'll put a link beneath this episode. So beneath this video for you to go and claim this exact calculator, which makes it very, very simple. So to start things off, Ben, let's explain how this all works. You mentioned Profit First. So most of the people who are going to be listening to this, they're going to be newer to business. Let's focus on A.
Yeah. So A, it divvies up essentially how much you should allocate to different expenses. So like operating expenses, when you start out, you should allocate about 30% there. You should have about 5% of savings or profit that you should allocate. And you should also allocate 15% for taxes, and then your owner's pay is 50%, right? So this is where we come to with the owner's pay, where you need to actually earn double of what you want to pay yourself to be able to make ends meet when regards to the compensation back to yourself.
Right. And this obviously can be much higher if you're a solo practice and maybe you have a great lease agreement or partnership with a local gym. I've had some people who have had 80% profit margins. One of our clients, Ben, he Started working with us. Didn't think he'd be able to go all in on his practice for another several months. He was able to do it within 60 days of working with us because we got his pricing right and we got his marketing right. And suddenly he was selling package after package every single week, and he was replace his income very, very quickly. So you can do this much faster than you think if you do the math up front and then are willing to put in the work on the marketing side. So over here, you want to take them through it, Ben?
Yeah, so essentially what this calculator does a really good job of is you only need to modify about 4 or 5 of these cells, and it will spit out the numbers and your pricing for you and give you a recommendation on your pricing structure. So in this example, for those that aren't able to see the calculator, maybe listening on the podcast, is if you want to take home of $10,000, you're going to need $20,000 in income per month.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So from there, it's going to also tell you what you should be allocating toward taxes, savings, and your business expenses as well. So you'll see business expenses if are at 6,000, and then if we need business savings again of 5%, that's $1,000, and then if we want then 15% for taxes. So 15% of 20,000 is 3,000. So it really just spits out the things in the green here is what you do not want to edit.
It's based off of profit first. So all these numbers, we're not just making up. This is what your goal targets are for your expenses, your savings for the business, then of course your owner's pay, which in your first year, if you're doing less than $250,000 a year, well then about 50% of that should be your owner's pay. So if you're just jumping in and want to make $10,000 a month, well then your revenue target really needs to be this 20K.
Yep, exactly. So then what we're doing is figuring out how many hours per week do you want, or how many patients do you want to see per week? So people have, and this was me too, going into business, I thought, oh, I'll just see like $35, $40 worth of patients. That's not bad. One-on-one, I was seeing like 20 patients a day in my, high volume mill clinic that I was working for, right? 20, 35, 40 isn't anything. It's a lot. 25 to like really 30 was my cap. If I saw 30 patients in a week, I was feeling it by the time Friday evening rolled around. 25 was really like my max of what I was really wanting to do. There's some weeks I just have high cancellation rate and I'm seeing 30, and yeah, you'll feel that. So 25 is like the highest amount that I'd really recommend seeing patients.
Yep.
So you can manipulate like, hey, maybe you're like, hey, actually, I don't even want to see 25. I only want to see 20. So you just go in here and allocate how many hours that you want to allocate to patient care, but just know that you're gonna have to also allocate if you want to grow to business hours to business development too, right? So you can put admin hours in here. So like, 5 to 7 hours of admin, like rescheduling patients, calling leads, doing the discovery calls. Like you're going to need time for that. And you're also going to need time for business development. So this calculator will also add up all the hours here so you can get an idea of how many hours worked. And really, you can do 40 hours at the beginning, but if you really want to be successful in business, I would highly advise putting in 60 to 70 hour weeks at the beginning. Everybody's going to tell you like work-life balance, like yes and no, but I call bullshit on that. Like the first couple of years, like it's just going to take you a lot longer, and there's sacrifices that come with that as well. So it was uncommon for me to put like 60, 80 hours weeks within those first 1 to 3 years. And like people, I've seen other groups like will blow smoke up your ass. Like, no, you can have work-life balance. You can all do this when you're starting your business. Yes and no. It just depends. Do you really want to have a real business, and do you really want to grow and scale a true business, or do you want to have a lifestyle business? So if you want a lifestyle business where it's just you and you stay capped at yourself, you can work 40 hours and live out your days there. But at the end of the day, you're going to be tied to your business and doing all this admin work. And so for me, the decision was just grind really hard for the first 1 to 2 years, and then be able to replace myself. And I'm really glad that I put those hours in. So
and you have to. If you're not willing to work like a dog for the first 5 years of owning a business, don't even do it. It doesn't take 5 years to build a really healthy, thriving, profitable, high impact practice. But when you're first getting started, realistically, like you're gonna have to put in more than 40 hours just to accelerate your rate of learning. Okay, you're not going to learn enough working 40 hours a week to develop the skills of a CEO, where you have to know marketing, you have to learn sales, you have to learn operations, you have to learn how to manage KPIs. There's so much that goes into it. But and if you're trying to go full time in your practice, it does all start here with where you're trying to get to. And so right now, if you have a part-time job, like, no, you're not going to be able to see, you know, you know, if you can probably only see 5, maybe 10 people a month. Okay. And you're probably not going to have this kind of time to put into this. This means while you're working your other job and you're working your practice, you're going to have to work more than 40 hours a week if you have another full-time job. But the key is determine your pricing and your rates based off of where you intend to be, not where you are right now, and then just put in that work in order to get yourself there. Because if you set your pricing too low to start out with, well, then it's always harder to bring it back up. And it means you're gonna have to see twice or 3 times as many patients to do the same amount of revenue, and you're just delaying how long it's going to take you to be able to go full time in your practice. So as an owner, if you're intending on building a team, don't do more than 20 hours. You're going to need those additional, or 20 treatment hours. You're going to need those additional hours to learn, to implement. And then eventually, when you have a consistent stream of new patients and you have steady operations that are repeatable that you can teach to someone else, you have the man hours to be able to allocate some of this business development to training and onboarding another clinician. So you can get your time back and double your business development hours and start to grow your practice very quickly.
Yeah.
So plan it around the life you want, not your current circumstances.
Yep. Exactly. So the price structure is also going to tell you, like, based on like, hey, how many patients do you want to see per week? It's going to also tell you what your average visit needs to be as well. For that. So, if like you want to see 25 patients, your average price per visit is going to be right around 200 on that. So all it's doing is essentially taking 20,000, which is your goal in your business to generate, because you want to have a take-home pay of $10,000. So 50% of 2,000 is 10,000. So to meet that $20,000 goal, what it's doing is just taking that $20,000 per month that you need to be hitting, and assuming that you're working 48 weeks. So this is also taking into account if you want to take 4 weeks of vacation as well. So that is factored in there too. So if you want to see 25 patients per week, you would need to charge about $200 per session, or average price per visit with that. Okay. So if you want to see like only 20 on yourself and still be able to make that 20,000, now you need to have a rate of 250 as well.
Right. And so you can always modify your prices, but it is best for you to just do the self work and the money mindset work to feel comfortable with these prices, because this is really where you want to be. Because everyone wants to start their practice and they have a vision of providing a world-class patient experience, but you can't do that. You can't have the best equipment. You can't have the best facility. You can't be your best self. You definitely can't attract the best talent unless you have the margin to do so. And you need to be charging these higher prices in order to do that. And if your argument is, I really want to serve underserved populations, that's really great, but there's an order of operations to get there. That can't be the foundation of your business, because it'll never make money and you'll never be able to help as many people as you actually want to, let alone take care of yourself and your family. So it's best to build a foundation on a profitable premium price point, so that later down the road, once this system is fully in motion and consistently profitable and can operate without you, well, now you have this healthy profit margin that you can reinvest into serving those underserved communities. But you're doing it from a position of leverage where you're not trading your happiness, your sanity, and your financial security to serve other people. Because just like in an airplane, we have to put our own masks on first. You have to take care of you, your business, and the machine that you're building to serve other people, so you can serve more people.
Okay. Yeah, and this is an important piece about the pricing too. Like, let's say that you want to serve the underserved population starting out. You technically can. You just need to price your regular rates appropriately, right? So everybody's like, well, I don't want to price people out. At the end of the day, if you're charging anything above $1, you're going to be pricing some people out. That's just the reality of it. If it's not free, you can't help 100% of people, right? So you got to pick your battles here. If what you could do is, like, let's say, hey, your cap is 25 patients per week. Let's say you want to give out 5 for free pro bono services or sessions per week. What you could do is, now you just charge $250. If you charge $250 per session times 20, you hit that $20,000 goal while also being able to allocate 5 sessions of pro bono work. Where I
Yep.
think I see a lot of people mess up is like, oh, I'm going to price myself around like 130 or 120. And because they don't want to price people out. At the end of the day, you're still pricing people out. You're better off just charging regular solid rates and then donating sessions for free. Because again, if it's not anything above free, you're going to be pricing people out. And so
Mm,
I see there's kind of a psychology piece to it that people will act as martyrs that they're going to charge 120 or like 130 instead of 200 because they don't want to price people out. At the end of the day, it's a lie. You're still pricing people out. You're just at your own internal thermostat of what you think is pricing people out versus not pricing people out.
yeah.
Again, anything, if it's not free, you're still going to be pricing people out regardless. So you might as well charge what you should be charging. Then you can hand out free bono service or pro bono services for
Right.
people to do it that
And
way.
before we briefly touch on like your package structuring and the discounts that you should add into that, I want to go off of that financial thermostat. Like a lot of you are thinking like, yeah, that's way too expensive because you think it's expensive. You aren't in a financial situation where you could afford that, which makes perfect sense. But the problem when we base our finances or our pricing and our offers based off of our financial situation, we'll never be able to escape our financial situation because you're not pricing yourself based off of where you want to be financially. And so a lot of people, they price themselves based off of what they can afford, and because of that they can never escape that financial threshold because they price themselves that way, and they're attracting more and more people that are at that same financial threshold, and then you never have the margin to reach that next level that you actually want to be at. And so price yourself. It should feel uncomfortable at first. It absolutely should. But if you want to elevate yourself and you want to ascend into the next tier of financial situations, you have to price yourself again based off of where you want to be, not where you currently are. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck there and you're going to find yourself working harder than you ever had for even less security.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So, all right. The way this calculator works, and again, we'll put the link beneath this video once this podcast goes live to be able to claim this exact calculator so you can figure it out. Feel free. I mean, you can build it yourself, but why bother? Down here, we put in what pricing we actually want to have. And so a lot of people, if they have a good head on their shoulders and they're doing the research, maybe using this calculator, they're starting at the 200, 190 range because that's still at the upper tier of where you're comfortable. But even at this, you're not going to be on pace. This is highlighted in red because it's beneath where you actually need to be, where you should be charging, $250 or averaging $200 per session. And so you can get pretty dang close with these prices. So don't, you can get by charging this rate, but it is going to be pretty dang close. So if you're trying to build something really healthy, thriving, that you can grow quickly and also have margin to reinvest into marketing and more growth, you're definitely going to want to bump these up because this should be the discounted rate, not your full price evaluation rate.
Yep. Exactly. And also a big piece of that too is also going to be your average number of sessions per plan of care too, and how long do people stick around. It's going to be a big key piece there.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to attract people and close them is only half the battle. We have to be able to retain them and keep them long term. So if you use the calculator to determine the minimum price points that you need to have in order to get your goal, because now if you're charging $250 a session versus $150 a session, well, you need half the number of patients to actually achieve your goal, which means you have to work way less hard to actually acquire those people, because it is just as easy to sell a $150 thing as a $250 thing. In fact, most people that we work with, they find that it's way easier to sell a $250 thing because it's in a premium price point. So the perceived value of what it's going to be is way higher. Where if it's priced in the competitive range, well, now they're asking, how good could this actually be? There's a misalignment with what they expect and what you're telling them it is. And so because they're confused and they're unsure, they say they need to think about it or they need to talk to their spouse. But when it is premium, people assume that it's going to be the best and better than what they've already tried.
Yep. 100%.
Okay. So let's move into it. When we first get started, things that we should be tracking, baseline metrics that we should track so that when we are ready or think we're getting close to being ready to go all in, we can have some certainty around that.
Yeah, the main thing is like your phone call conversion rate. That's gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
big one. Like you can have all the leads you want, but if you get it on the phone, you can't convert them. Like that's the biggest thing. So what we want is a minimum of 60%. You're gonna be starting out, you're probably gonna be right around there. And then as you get better, you want to be close to like that 70-75% mark. But starting out when you're just at the beginning, 60% is a solid mark for those first few months that you want to aim for. But then I think really your main KPIs is your pricing that we just went over.
Mm.
The other metric is your how many visits are people staying around
Yep.
for a plan of care. That's another big kicker because if you have a patient that averages only 5 visits per plan of care versus you have an average visit plan of care of 10, if you have 5 versus 10, you're going to need twice as many leads to accomplish the same thing as if you had an average visit per plan of care of 10 compared to 5. So I promise you it's a lot easier to double the average visit per plan of care on how long people are sticking around than it is to double your leads or lead generation. So those would be my three things: is pricing, your phone call conversion, and then average visit per plan of care. And then a bonus would be your evaluation conversion rate. How many people that come in for an eval convert? But yeah, curious what yours are doing.
Yeah, no, it's actually something that's coming to mind for me that I was just working on is how it is how we need to be able to look at our business just the same way that we treat patients, because they're actually extremely simple. Building your business and treating a patient are actually extremely similar, and there is an order of operations to it. So like we all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let me share my screen real quick. Should get this thing up here. Yeah, that'll play. Okay, so let's make this big and pretty. Okay, so there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, self-actualization, or it starts with physiological needs. We need to be able to breathe. We need to be able to, actually get through our day. Our safety needs. We need to feel secure within our life. We need to have love and belonging. We need to have esteem amongst our friends. Then we have self-actualization, where we are actually working on optimizing our happiness, our legacy, all the other things. Okay, so there's a very specific order of operations for what, as human beings, what we need to live and be happy in our lives. And our business is exactly the same. At the very bottom, it's sales. In the middle, it's profit. Up above, it's order. And then it's legacy. And so when you're first starting out, to figure out if you want to to get yourself in a position where you're ready to go all in, we need to only focus on sales. It starts with understanding what our pricing is. Is our pricing, our rates, what they need to be in order to create the lifestyle that we actually want to have, and how many leads do we need or how many patients do we need to actually have that? We have to know what that number is. We have to know what that target is. We then need to understand, okay, if I need that many patients, how many leads do I need to be able to acquire in order to hit that number of patients? So we need to know, as you said, what our conversion rates are. Like, what's our phone to booking rate? What is our eval to package close percentage? And then if once we know those numbers, if we're tracking them, well, then it's like, okay, we need, if I need, if I get 10 leads, half of those book an appointment with me. So I get 5 evaluations, and half of those convert into packages. Well, that's 3 packages a week potentially. Well, that means that I need to be able to generate at least 10 leads every single week, and then that'll put us in the range of where we need to be financially. And so we need to, that means initially everything you do is going to be on building relationships and getting referrals, learning how to run ads, or learning how to do organic content and work our DMs to turn those people into patients. And so when you're first getting started, like, a lot of people are already worried about profit. They're worried about building systems and building like this, crazy experience and buying all this like new equipment and stuff for where they're at, and they never actually get where they're trying to go. Like, do not work on anything other than getting your prices right and making sure that you have steady lead volume to produce the number of sales that you need. Don't work on anything else until you're able to do that consistently. Then you can start to focus on profit. How do we maximize lifetime value? How do we maximize retention? How do we launch membership programs to keep people around longer to build our monthly recurring revenue? But if you're not ready, if you're not hitting the lead volume you need, you're not hitting your conversion rates that you need, and your pricing isn't right, nothing else in the business matters until you get all of those things right. And so this is the difference between people who struggle for a really long time because they don't have any order of operations in the tasks that they're working on, and the people that get successful very, very quickly because they are laser focused on those baseline needs of the business: lead acquisition, conversions, and sales.
Yeah.
Once you have those, now you can focus on optimizing your experience and membership offerings to keep people around longer. And then you can optimize for profit. And then you can optimize the systems and the operations so that you can hire someone and start delegating some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's so simple. Like if you can really dial in your pricing, so many issues are solved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So many issues are solved.
Right.
It makes business so much easier. And that's why I'm so anti in-network clinics. You can't even set your damn pricing. Like one of the biggest needles that you can pull and your hands are tied. Cash based, you can charge whatever you want as long as you can sell it, and do the sales and learn how to be professional in that. You can charge much more than you can with the in-network clinics. So
100%. It's way easier when you're working with people who have the money and are willing to invest it than you are with anyone who's nickel and diming you over absolutely everything. They stick around longer, they refer more often, they put in the work, they get the outcomes. It is a much better place to be working with people who actually have the money to invest and value their health. Let's talk about the roadmap to go from still working a job, doing a side hustle, to part-time to full-time in your practice. So we kind of already hit on the first one. Know what your revenue target is, know what your pricing is, how many patients you need to maintain that income level, and how many leads you need to acquire to get that many patients every single month. Okay, that's the baseline. That's what you need to have. Now, if you're running a job, the problem with what most people out there are coaching is that it's all around referrals, workshops, relationships, posting content, soliciting and DMing strangers, all of those things. What's the cost of that marketing strategy?
Time.
Yep. It's time. It's time. Time that you do not have because you're working another job and you have a life. And so when you're first getting started, the fastest way to go full-time in your practice, and this is Ben that I was talking about earlier, is running ads, because now you're able to leverage the income from your job to grow the dream business that you ultimately want to have, because now you're leveraging your resources instead of your time. So ads is the fastest way to get the lead volume you need to sustain that revenue number, and you have full control over that. So when you're running ads, run it towards some sort of paid offer. It can't be a free discovery call. It can't be a free consultation, because you're only going to attract freebie seekers that aren't going to pay your premium rates. You need to advertise something that's $47 to $97. Anything above that, well, then your cost per lead skyrockets, and then your number, which means, instead of $20, it costs you $50 per lead. And if you have a fixed marketing budget where you can only spend $500 or $1,000 a month, well, now you're not getting any leads, which means you're not getting any at-bats at practicing your discovery calls or your evaluations. So your skill set's not getting better, and it's going to take you much, much longer to get the data to be able to make informed decisions. And so we use ads as not only an accelerant where we're able to get more leads in faster, but we also use it as a diagnostic tool, because once we have leads and data pouring into the business, well, now we can start to read and analyze our business the same way we do patients, because we can see how many calls did we get, how many of them converted, how many evals did we have, how many of them converted, of those that converted, how many visits did they average and how much money do they spend with us on average. And so now that we have all that data, we can use the cash practice hierarchy of needs to determine what is the next biggest thing that we need to be focused on in our business. We can systematically identify the root cause and fix it just like we do with our patients. But if you're not running ads and you're doing workshops and you're doing content and you're DMing strangers, the volume is just so low that it takes us a year or years to be able to accumulate the data to identify the real issues that are going on in our business. And that's how you end up being stuck in a side hustle or a not profitable business for 12 plus months, rather than being able to go all in on your practice in a matter of weeks. And so start with paid ad. Once you identify your pricing, once you identify your targets, use paid ads to accelerate the collection of data and patients in your business. That's how you're going to get really, really good at this really, really fast. Because if you can only sell the referrals, well, now you're at the mercy of referrals and you never actually learned how to sell anything. So it's much, much better to start and build a business around converting strangers and skeptics, because now the referrals are going to have an even better experience because you built an experience that's meant to convert strangers, which means it's world class. And so that's the best way to start. It's the fastest way to go full time.
Yeah.
Anything I missed, man?
No, it's just like referrals. You're not really doing sales. You're just doing order taking. Most of the time,
exactly.
People think they're great at sales. Like, okay, what's your lead volume makeup? Like 90% referrals. I'm like, yeah, that's why you think you're good at sales.
Right. Yeah, you're really good at sales. No, they came in already knowing that they wanted to buy from you. And it's funny how many practices that we talk to who are reluctant to change their offerings or are reluctant to change their processes because their processes got them this far. They built a $20 or $200, $300,000 a year business off of referrals, and that got them there. So they're reluctant to change it, not knowing like what got them there is not going to get them to that next level. To have a healthy, sustainable, and scalable business, we have to be able to market to more skeptical and colder leads, because at any given time, only 3% of your market are those referrals, the people who are already convinced they want to buy. That means there's a finite number of those people within your community. And in order to scale, you have to be able to reach those other people to do these higher numbers within our business. You have to learn how to do it. There's no way around it.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, last piece here. Okay, the mindset shift you'll have to make to stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like a business owner. What's the first thing that comes to mind for you, Ben?
I don't know, maybe because it's just kind of fresh in my mind because we talked about it already. It's just like you got to get into the business for the right reasons. If it's because you want to work less, you're already lost. You're not gonna.
Yeah,
like honestly,
screwed.
I was just like, I get the question a lot, like, how many hours do you have to work? Like, do you work a week? And like, they're like, think I'm going to say like, oh, I don't have to work that much. It's like 5 or 10, whatnot. No, I don't have to work, but I literally still put in like 50 to 60 hour weeks because like, what else would I be doing that I get this type of fulfillment at? And that's why I win, is because of that. If you're getting in business because you want to work less, you're going to get crushed because people do this for fun. People sick in the head, like myself, do this for fun. You're going to get crushed. Right. And so that's the thing too, is you have to get in the mindset of like going into this, that you're doing this for the right reasons because you're actually passionate about it. And it's not because you want work-life balance. If you're going to because you want work-life balance, like this isn't the path for you.
It's kind of like hiking. Like if you go to I think it's in Yellowstone, where they have the big dome. I forget what it's called. You know what I'm talking about? It's a huge mountain. It has a really amazing like view, but it's like the mountain's shaped like a dome, and so a lot of rock climbers go up there. But one of our partners, he was on a hike with a coding boot camp to the top of that mountain, and a lot of people quit who at the beginning of the day were so excited about getting to the top of that mountain and seeing the whole Yellowstone Park and seeing this incredible view. It might not be Yellowstone. If I'm wrong in the chat, let me know. But a lot of people were so excited to see the view from up there, and all of them quit. All of them gave up on that hike and went home because it was like a 6-hour-long hike. It might have been even more than that. But they all quit early and went home because they're focused on the destination. All the people that made it to the top were the people that loved the walk. They loved the hike. And so the person that loves the hike is always going to hike further than the person who loves the destination. And so in business, yes, set your sights high. If you want to work remotely, if you want to have a business that runs itself so that you can do all the exciting things in life to do, that's great. But you're never going to get there unless you learn to love the process of failing, learning, and trying again, because that's really what it takes. So fall in love with the journey is really the thing. But just know that it doesn't start that way. It doesn't start that way. I think we learn to love the work because kind of like one of the last episodes, we're talking about loving like the pressure of it. Where at first, like there's so much pressure and you want to get rid of it. But the more you operate within that pressure, the more you overcome that pressure, eventually you fall in love with it because you've conquered it so many times. And the fulfillment on the other end of that obstacle or that stress or that pressure, it's the strongest drug in the world. And so it's really hard you fall in love with it. The more obstacles you face, the more failures you have, the more times you get up, the more you end up loving and becoming addicted to that process. So if you don't love the work right now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do this, but just know that's where you need to get to. You need to love the work. You need to put it in. And if you log enough hours, you'll start to love it. My final piece on mindset is nobody cares how good of a clinician you are. No one cares about your credentials. No one cares about what school you went to or any of that. The only thing consumers care about is if you understand their situation as well, if not better than they are. This is why there's massage therapists and personal trainers who are able to sell programs and rehab at a premium price point, because consumers don't care, because they assume if you understand their problem and can describe it as well, if not better than them, and provide a very clear vision for how they get from where they are to where they want to be in terms that they understand, rather than over educating, they'll buy every single time. They don't care about anything else because they assume that you have the right solution. And so going into this, don't try to sell or market based off your credentials, your experience, where you went to school, because nobody cares. The people who win are the people who master psychology, marketing, sales, and providing an exceptional experience. And an exceptional experience makes people feel smart. They have clarity. They know what the steps are. And when we over-educate and try to show how smart we are, it just confuses people. It hurts the experience, and then they drop off. And so going into this, just know that the entrepreneurial graveyard is riddled with people who are way more talented and way smarter than you, who thought that that's what it created success in business. It is not. It is people who dedicate themselves to learning marketing, learning business skills, learning how to operate a business, that are able to use their clinical expertise the most, because they go hand in hand. If you are a great clinician, but no business skills, you don't get to use your clinical skills. You have to master business and marketing to actually use the skills that you've developed. And so that's the biggest mindset shift that I think a lot of people need to make going into starting their first practice.
That's a really good one. Yeah, that's probably my number one now.
Yeah. Heck yeah, I got him. All right, everybody, if you want access to the pricing calculator for your practice, beneath this video, we're going to have a link for you to be able to go and grab that. And don't forget, if you got value out of this, make sure that you go and subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast for more episodes from Ben and I every single week.